Look what we got here. Another ghetto grandma thinking she deserves a free ride on my bus. The words slice through the morning air like a whip. Derek Walsh, a sweaty white bus driver with dead eyes, blocks the entrance with his bulging forearm. His target, Evelyn Washington, a 72-year-old black woman clutching a wooden cane. The bus doors slam shut on her fingers. She jerks backward, nearly falling onto the sidewalk. Her purse spills open, coins rolling into the gutter. Passengers gasp. A young man starts recording. Derek's fat lips twist into a cruel grin. He reopens the doors with theatrical slowness, savoring every second of her humiliation. Fine. Get on. But don't even think about those priority seats. Those are for real Americans who actually contribute something. Evelyn's weathered hands grip the broken cane pieces. Her face remains composed, but something dangerous flickers in her eyes. Other riders shift nervously. Some films, others pretend not to see. Have you ever witnessed pure hatred disguised as authority? 3 hours earlier, Evelyn Washington's small apartment buzzes with the hum of an old refrigerator. Sunlight filters through thin curtains, casting gentle shadows across worn furniture that tells stories of better times. The scent of brewing coffee mingles with the faint aroma of yesterday's dinner. She moves with careful precision, her morning routine unchanged for 15 years. Each step deliberate, each action purposeful. Her arthritic hands wrap around a chipped mug that reads, "World's Greatest Mayor," a gift from her late husband Robert. The bathroom mirror reflects a face weathered by 7 decades of struggle and triumph. Silver hair pulled into a neat bun, brown eyes that have seen segregation end and hope rise, then watched gentrification push her neighbors away one by one. Her closet holds clothes from department store sales, nothing fancy. A navy blue cardigan with small holes near the cuffs. Sensible black shoes resoled twice. The wooden cane leans against the wall. Robert's old walking stick, smooth from years of use. Outside her window, the city awakens with grinding gears and honking horns. Construction cranes pierce the skyline like metal fingers, reaching toward luxury condos that will house tech workers and young professionals. Signs everywhere promise urban renewal and modern living. But Evelyn remembers when this neighborhood pulsed with black-owned businesses, when children played safely in streets now lined with for sale signs and coffee shops charging $5 for basic drinks. She checks the bus schedule taped to her kitchen wall. Route 47, her route. The line she fought city council to establish in 1997, connecting forgotten neighborhoods to downtown jobs. Back then, she wore designer suits and commanded respect in marble-floored meeting rooms. Now she counts quarters for bus fare. The walk to the bus stop takes 12 minutes, her cane tapping rhythmically against cracked sidewalks. She passes the old community center where she once held town halls, now converted to luxury lofts. The corner store where she bought penny candy as a child now sells organic smoothies to newcomers who avoid eye contact. At the bus stop, other passengers wait in silence. Maria Santos, a tired-looking Latina nurse heading to her hospital shift, recognizes Evelyn with a slight nod. James Cooper, a young black man with textbooks and a laptop bag, scrolls through his phone while waiting. Harold Mitchell, an elderly white man with kind eyes, offers a genuine smile. These are the people she once served. The working families struggle to stay afloat while their city transforms around them. They don't recognize their former mayor in the woman with the second-hand clothes and careful budget. The morning air carries the exhaust of diesel engines and the distant sound of jackhammers. Pigeons peck at crumbs near an overflowing trash can. A homeless veteran she remembers from her mayoral days shuffles past, pushing a shopping cart filled with bottles and memories. Derek Walsh's bus approaches 15 minutes late, belching black smoke. Through the windshield, Evelyn can see his heavy face twisted in permanent irritation. His uniform shirt strains against his belly, stained with coffee and contempt. She knows drivers like Derek, knows how power corrupts small minds, how a uniform and a steering wheel can transform insecurity into cruelty. During her years as mayor, she received complaints about drivers who accidentally passed black passengers, who made unnecessary stops in hostile neighborhoods, who treated public transportation like their personal kingdom. But complaints disappeared into filing cabinets. Union protection and bureaucratic indifference created shields around men like Derek. The same systems she once tried to reform from the inside, only to discover how deeply prejudice roots itself in institutional soil. The bus doors hiss open. Derek's eyes scan the waiting passengers with the lazy malice of a predator selecting prey. His gaze settles on Evelyn, taking in her worn clothes, her careful movements, her obvious vulnerability. She approaches the steps with dignity intact, unaware that her morning routine is about to become a viral video, unaware that her quiet strength will soon collide with his loud hatred, unaware that Route 47, her legacy, will become the battleground where justice and injustice meet head-on. The city continues its relentless transformation around them. But on this Tuesday morning, an old woman and a bitter man are about to write a new chapter in the ongoing struggle for human dignity. The bus lurches forward as Derek deliberately guns the engine, causing Evelyn to stumble against the metal rail. Her cane clatters to the floor, rolling toward the back of the bus with each sharp turn. "Watch your step there, Grandma. This ain't a luxury cruise ship." Derek's voice booms through the intercom system, ensuring every passenger hears his mockery. The bus interior reeks of disinfectant and stale sweat. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting harsh shadows across cracked vinyl seats. Advertisements for payday loans and bail bondsmen line the walls above windows streaked with grime. Evelyn retrieves her cane and surveys the priority seating area. 4 seats clearly marked with blue signs and wheelchair symbols. 3 are occupied by younger white passengers who suddenly find their phones fascinating or their eyes heavy with fake sleep. A blonde woman in designer workout clothes spreads her yoga mat and water bottle across an entire seat. Her manicured nails tap against her iPhone screen as she pretends not to notice Evelyn's presence. Diamond rings catch the fluorescent light as she scrolls through social media, completely absorbed in her digital world. A middle-aged white man in a rumpled business suit talks loudly into his Bluetooth headset. "Yeah, I'm on the Ghetto Express, gonna be late for the meeting. You know how these buses are, always picking up strays." His voice carries the casual cruelty of someone convinced he's among allies. A teenage white boy with expensive sneakers props both feet on the empty 4th seat, his backpack claiming the space beside him. His eyes meet Evelyn's with a cold challenge, daring her to ask him to move. Music leaks from his earbuds, the bass thumping like a heartbeat. The regular passengers, Maria, James, Harold, and others, stand packed in the aisle, swaying with each pothole and sharp turn. They've learned not to expect courtesy from entitled riders or protection from drivers like Derek. Their faces show the resigned exhaustion of people who endure daily indignities without recourse. "Excuse me," Evelyn's voice carries the measured authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "I wonder if I might use one of these priority seats. I have some difficulty standing for long periods." Her words are polite, reasonable, exactly what any civilized person would request. She speaks with the same tone she once used to address city council meetings, when her voice carried the weight of elected office. The blonde woman's eyes remain glued to her phone screen, thumb scrolling with practiced indifference. The businessman raises his voice deliberately louder, describing quarterly projections as if Evelyn's request were merely background noise. The teenager smirks and stretches his legs wider across both seats, his sneakers leaving scuff marks on the blue vinyl. He removes one earbud to better enjoy the unfolding confrontation, treating Evelyn's humiliation as entertainment. "Hey, lady," Derek's voice crackles through the intercom again. "Those seats are taken. Find somewhere else or get off my bus. I've got a schedule to keep and I'm not running a charity service here." His words hit the packed bus like acid rain. Passengers shift uncomfortably, some pulling out phones to record what's unfolding. Others study their shoes, unwilling to become involved in the brewing confrontation. Maria Santos, still in her hospital scrubs from a double shift, steps forward despite her exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes tell the story of back-to-back 16-hour shifts, but her voice remains strong. She can have my seat. I don't mind standing. Nobody asked you, Consuela. Derek's racist nickname drips with venom. Everyone stays where they are. We don't need musical chairs disrupting my route. You people always stick together, don't you? The businessman ends his call and addresses Evelyn directly, his tone patronizing and false friendly. Look, sweetheart, maybe you should call one of your relatives to pick you up. I'm sure they've got a nice car, probably a Cadillac or something flashy like that. Wouldn't that be more comfortable than this old bus? His casual racism masquerades as helpfulness, the kind of microaggression that cuts deeper than obvious slurs. Other passengers recognize the coded language, the assumptions wrapped in fake concern. James Cooper, the college student, discreetly activates his phone's video recording function. His journalism training kicks in as he documents every word, every gesture, every moment of systemic discrimination playing out in real time. His hands remain steady despite his racing heart. Listen here, old woman. Derek abandons any pretense of professionalism, his voice rising to a shout that echoes through the metal tube. I don't know what kind of special treatment you think you deserve, but this is my bus. My rules. You don't like it, there's the door. He punctuates his threat by hitting the brakes hard, sending Evelyn stumbling backward into other standing passengers. Her cane flies from her grip again, this time striking a young mother holding a toddler. The child begins to cry, adding to the chaos Derek seems determined to create. Sorry, folks, Derek announces over the intercom, his tone dripping with false sincerity. We're experiencing some delays due to difficult passengers who don't understand basic bus etiquette. Some people think they're special and think the rules don't apply to them. The announcement transforms Evelyn from victim to villain in Derek's twisted narrative. He's practiced at this manipulation, skilled at making his targets appear unreasonable while portraying himself as the patient professional dealing with problem passengers. Harold Mitchell, the elderly white man with kind eyes, finally speaks up. His voice wavers with age, but carries moral conviction built over decades of witnessing injustice. Son, this isn't right. The lady just needs a seat. Show some basic human decency. Derek's head swivels toward Harold like a predator identifying a new threat. His eyes narrow with the special hatred reserved for those who break ranks, who refuse to participate in collective cruelty. Mind your own business, Pops, unless you want to walk the rest of the way, too. Maybe you're too old to understand how things work anymore. The temperature inside the bus climbs as Derek manipulates the heating system, claiming a mechanical malfunction when passengers begin to sweat and complain. The air grows thick and stifling, adding physical discomfort to the emotional tension that hangs over everyone like a toxic cloud. Sweat beads form on foreheads. Passengers begin removing jackets and fanning themselves with newspapers. The blonde woman finally looks uncomfortable, shifting in her hoarded seat as perspiration threatens her expensive workout clothes. Evelyn stands in the swaying aisle, gripping the overhead rail with both hands wrapped around her cane handle. Her face remains composed, but her knuckles show white with the effort of maintaining balance as Derek takes corners too fast and stops too suddenly. Each lurch of the bus becomes a physical assault disguised as normal driving. You know what your problem is? Derek continues his public humiliation campaign, his voice carrying the authority of a man drunk on small-time power. You people always think the world owes you something, always expecting handouts and special favors, always playing the victim card when decent folks are just trying to get to work. His words slice through the bus like broken glass, each phrase carefully chosen to maximize pain while maintaining plausible deniability. This isn't his first rodeo. He's perfected the art of cruelty wrapped in righteous indignation. Some passengers look away in shame, recognizing their own cowardice in their silence. Others begin recording more openly, their moral outrage finally overcoming their fear of confrontation. The bus transforms into a mobile courtroom where justice and injustice wage war. The blonde woman finally looks up from her phone, surveys the scene with cold calculation, then returns to her screen without moving her belongings from the empty seat. Her silence speaks louder than words, complicity disguised as neutrality, evil enabled by indifference. Derek accelerates through a yellow light, throwing passengers against each other as the bus lurches forward through the intersection. Evelyn nearly falls but catches herself, her dignity intact despite his best efforts to break her spirit through humiliation and physical intimidation. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before getting on my bus," Derek mutters, loud enough for everyone to hear but quiet enough to claim privacy. "Maybe next time you'll know your place in the natural order of things." The words hang in the recycled air like smoke from a fire everyone pretends not to smell. Justice and injustice wage war in the confined space of a public bus, witnessed by citizens too afraid or too indifferent to intervene. But phones are recording. Witnesses are watching. And somewhere in the back of the bus, a college journalism student captures every moment of what will soon become a viral symbol of systemic racism meeting unshakable dignity. The confrontation has only just begun, and the stakes are about to get much higher. Derek's eyes narrow as he studies Evelyn through his rearview mirror, plotting his next move with the calculated cruelty of a seasoned bully. The bus idles at a red light, diesel engine rumbling like a caged beast while he formulates his attack. "Hold up there, lady." His voice cuts through the stifling air like a rusty blade. "I need to see your fare receipt. Something doesn't look right about your payment." Evelyn holds up her senior transit pass, a laminated card clearly displaying her photo and senior citizen status. The pass dangles from a lanyard around her neck, impossible to miss and obviously legitimate. "That card looks suspicious to me. Could be fake, could be stolen. I'm going to need additional identification to verify you're actually entitled to senior rates." Derek's voice carries the false authority of someone making up rules as he goes. The blonde woman shifts uncomfortably in her hoarded seat, finally sensing the legal boundaries Derek is crossing. The businessman ends his phone call, suddenly paying attention to the unfolding drama. Even the teenager removes his earbuds, recognizing something dangerous in the driver's escalating aggression. "Sir, this is my valid transit pass issued by the city." Evelyn's voice remains steady, but passengers notice her grip tighten on her cane. "The photo clearly shows my identity, and the expiration date is current." "Don't get smart with me, Grandma. I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I know it's fake when I see one." Derek's lie rolls off his tongue with practiced ease. "Now open that purse and let me inspect your other documents. Could be you're carrying stolen passes, unpaid transfers, maybe even drugs." The demand sends shockwaves through the bus. James Cooper's phone captures every word as he live streams to his journalism class group chat. Other passengers begin recording openly, no longer concerned about Derek's retaliation. Maria Santos, despite her exhaustion, steps closer to Evelyn in solidarity. "This is illegal. Bus drivers cannot search personal belongings without police present." "Nobody asked you, Maria." Derek's use of her real name chills the bus. He's been watching, listening, learning passengers' identities for future harassment. "And I'll decide what's legal on my bus." Harold Mitchell's elderly voice shakes with righteous anger. "Son, you're crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. This woman has done nothing wrong." "Shut up, old man, before I decide your pass needs inspection too." Derek's threat silences Harold, but the damage is done. Witnesses now see the pattern of intimidation targeting anyone who challenges his authority. Derek engages the bus's hazard lights and pulls over to the curb, trapping his passengers in a mobile prison. Through the windows, pedestrians slow their pace to watch the drama unfolding inside the glass cage. "Everyone stays seated while I conduct this inspection." Derek heaves his bulk from the driver's seat, his uniform shirt damp with sweat and stained with coffee. "Anyone who interferes gets thrown off my bus and reported to the transit police." He approaches Evelyn with predatory slowness, each step designed to maximize intimidation. His shadow falls across her face as he towers over her seated position, using his size to create psychological pressure. Open the purse, now! His breath carries the sour smell of energy drinks and resentment. I need to see everything inside. Wallet, papers, prescriptions, all of it. Evelyn's hands remain steady as she opens her worn leather purse, but passengers notice the slight tremor in her fingers. Inside, they glimpse the modest contents of a senior citizen's life. A few crumpled bills, prescription bottles, reading glasses, a small address book. Derek rifles through her belongings with theatrical thoroughness, examining each item as if conducting a criminal investigation. He holds up her prescription bottles, reading labels aloud to humiliate her with private medical information. Heart medication, blood pressure pills, arthritis cream. His voice drips with mock concern. Lot of expensive drugs here. How's a bus rider afford all these fancy prescriptions? Maybe we need to call social services. Make sure you're not selling these on the street. The accusation hits like a physical blow. Several passengers gasp audibly. The businessman finally speaks up, his corporate lawyer instincts recognizing a lawsuit in the making. Driver, you need to stop this immediately. And you need to mind your own business before I decide your briefcase needs searching too. Derek's threat expands to encompass anyone who might challenge his authority. James Cooper continues streaming, his viewer count climbing as the incident goes viral in real time. Comments flood his screen: outrage, disbelief, demands for justice. His journalism professor joins the chat, advising him to document everything for potential legal proceedings. Derek returns to his seat and radios transit dispatch, his voice loud enough for all passengers to hear. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I've got a problematic passenger refusing to cooperate with fare verification, requesting backup for potential ejection. The radio crackles with static before dispatch responds. Unit 47, what's the nature of the problem? Elderly female, possible fare evasion, refusing to provide adequate identification, causing disturbance and delaying route schedule. Derek's version of events bears no resemblance to reality, but his official tone lends false credibility to his lies. Passengers exchange horrified glances. They're witnessing the system in action, how complaints get filed, how narratives get twisted, how victims become perpetrators in official records. The bus pulls back into traffic, but Derek's driving becomes increasingly erratic. He takes corners too sharply, sending standing passengers lurching into each other. He brakes suddenly at green lights, then accelerates rapidly through intersections, treating his human cargo like cargo. Sorry for the rough ride, folks, he announces over the intercom. Sometimes when you've got uncooperative passengers, it affects the whole bus. Maybe everyone can thank our problem passenger for making your commute more difficult today. His psychological warfare continues, turning passengers against Evelyn by blaming her for Derek's deliberate dangerous driving. Some riders begin muttering complaints, falling for his manipulation despite witnessing his harassment firsthand. The temperature continues climbing as Derek maximizes the heating system. Windows fog with condensation from sweating passengers. The blonde woman finally moves her yoga mat, but only to fan herself, still refusing to offer her hoarded seat. Evelyn stands with quiet dignity amid the chaos, her composed face a stark contrast to Derek's increasingly unhinged behavior. She says nothing, does nothing to provoke him, yet her very presence seems to fuel his rage. You know what really gets me? Derek continues his monologue of hate, speaking to the bus but directing his words at Evelyn. People who think they deserve special treatment just because they're old. Newsflash. Everyone gets old. Doesn't make you special. Doesn't mean the world owes you anything. His words reveal the deep-seated resentment driving his cruelty. Not just racism, but a toxic combination of bitterness, failure, and misdirected anger at anyone he perceives as receiving benefits he's been denied. Harold Mitchell tries once more to intervene. Son, please, this has gone far enough. I warned you, Pops. Derek's voice turns ice cold with threat. One more word and you're walking too. I don't care how old you are. The bus approaches downtown where security cameras and witnesses multiply, where Derek's behavior will face greater scrutiny. But instead of moderating his conduct, he seems determined to escalate the confrontation before reaching areas with better oversight. Next stop, everyone off except our problem passenger. Derek's announcement sends panic through the bus. I'm calling this route complete due to passenger interference. Everyone can thank Grandma here for ruining your morning commute. Passengers look around desperately, recognizing the injustice but feeling powerless to stop it. Some begin gathering their belongings, preparing to abandon Evelyn to Derek's mercies rather than risk their own schedules and safety. But James Cooper remains seated, still streaming. Maria Santos crosses her arms defiantly. Harold Mitchell straightens his shoulders with newfound resolve. A core group of witnesses refuses to be intimidated into abandoning their fellow passenger. Derek notices the resistance and realizes his authority is slipping. His face flushes red with rage and embarrassment. He's losing control of the narrative, losing control of his passengers, losing control of the situation he created. The bus shudders to a stop at a major intersection, hazard lights blinking like warning signals. Through the windows, morning commuters hurry past, unaware that justice and injustice are locked in combat just feet away from their busy lives. Inside the metal tube, tension reaches a breaking point. Derek's harassment has crossed every line of decency and legality. His victims have endured humiliation, intimidation, and abuse disguised as official policy. But unknown to Derek, his reign of terror is about to end. The quiet woman he's tormented carries secrets he cannot imagine. The power he's abused is about to shift in ways that will transform hunters into prey. The moment of truth approaches with the inevitability of justice too long delayed. The bus idles at the intersection while Derek savors his moment of absolute power, unaware that his world is about to collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. Harold Mitchell squints through his bifocals, studying Evelyn's dignified profile with growing recognition. His weathered face transforms as distant memories suddenly snap into sharp focus. Wait just a minute. Harold's voice cuts through the toxic atmosphere like a church bell. I know you. You're... Good Lord, you're Mayor Washington. The words hit the bus like lightning striking metal. Passengers' heads turn in unison toward Evelyn, then back to Harold, trying to process this impossible revelation. The blonde woman's phone slips from her manicured fingers, clattering to the floor. Derek's confident smirk falters. What are you talking about, old man? Mayor of what? Some retirement home? But Harold's recognition spreads like wildfire among the older passengers. Maria Santos drops her purse, her tired eyes widening with sudden understanding. Dios mío. You helped my mother get citizenship in 1999. You personally walked her through the process when everyone else said it was hopeless. Evelyn nods quietly, her composure intact despite the mounting attention. Hello, Maria. How is your mother doing? She passed away last year, but she never forgot your kindness. Maria's voice breaks with emotion. You changed our entire family's life. James Cooper stops his live stream, lowering his phone respectfully as the magnitude of the story he's captured begins to dawn on him. Ma'am, I'm a journalism student. Are you really former Mayor Evelyn Washington, the civil rights leader? I am. Evelyn's voice carries the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command, no longer hiding behind elderly frailty. I served this city from 1995 to 2003. I established this very bus route we're riding on. The businessman's face drains of color as he recognizes the woman he insulted with racist assumptions about Cadillacs and relatives. His expensive suit suddenly feels like a costume, his corporate confidence crumbling under the weight of his own prejudice exposed. Even the teenager sits up straighter, his rebellious smirk replaced by wide-eyed awareness that he's witnessing history unfold in real time. Derek's confusion morphs into panic as passengers begin sharing their memories. You got the community center built in our neighborhood. You fought the highway department when they wanted to demolish our church. You started the senior meal program that fed my grandmother. Shut up, all of you. Derek's voice cracks like breaking glass. I don't care if she's the Queen of England. She's still just another passenger on my bus, and I'm still the driver here. But his authority hemorrhages with each word. Passengers no longer avoid eye contact or shrink from his threats. They've remembered who they're truly dealing with. Not a helpless elderly woman, but a leader who once commanded respect from governors and senators. Evelyn rises slowly from her position in the aisle, her wooden cane tapping against the floor with newfound authority. When she speaks, her voice carries the power that once filled city council chambers and commanded national attention. Mr. Walsh. She reads his name from the identification badge he wears so proudly. I established Route 47 in 1997 to serve the communities you've just insulted. I wrote the very policies you've violated today. I hired your supervisors and helped negotiate your union contract. Derek's face cycles through disbelief, recognition, and growing terror. You're lying. Prove it. Show me some ID that says you're important. Harold Mitchell pulls out his smartphone with arthritic fingers. Son, Google her name. Evelyn Washington, Mayor 1995 to 2003, Civil Rights Pioneer, Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. The teenager's phone is already out, his fingers flying across the screen. Holy shit. She's real. She's like super famous. There's thousands of articles about her. Language, young man, Evelyn says mildly, but her slight smile shows she's not truly offended. Derek grabs the phone, staring at image after image of a younger Evelyn shaking hands with presidents, addressing Congress, leading civil rights marches. The same face, the same dignified bearing, the same quiet strength that he's spent the morning trying to crush. This can't be real, Derek whispers, but his protest sounds hollow even to himself. James Cooper resumes filming, but now his tone carries the reverence of a documentarian capturing history. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing former Mayor Evelyn Washington, civil rights legend, being harassed on public transportation in the very city she served for 8 years. The power dynamic has shifted so completely that Derek seems to shrink before their eyes. The authoritative bus driver becomes a sweating, panicked man who has just committed career suicide on camera. Ma'am, I didn't know. I mean, if I had known who you were. Derek's apologies tumble out like water from a broken dam. And if I were not who I am? Evelyn's question cuts deeper than any accusation. Would your behavior have been acceptable then? Do only former mayors deserve basic human dignity on your bus? Derek has no answer because there is no answer that doesn't damn him further. Maria Santos stands and offers Evelyn her seat with the respect due to royalty. Please, Mayor Washington, it would be my honor. But Evelyn remains standing, her presence now commanding the entire bus. Thank you, Maria, but I think I'll stand a little longer. I want everyone to see exactly what happens when power meets its match. Derek's empire of petty tyranny lies in ruins around him, destroyed by the simple truth of who his victim really is. The hunter has become the hunted, and justice is just getting started. Derek's hands shake as the full magnitude of his catastrophic mistake crashes over him like a tidal wave. Sweat pours down his face, mixing with the terror now written across his features. The uniform that once gave him authority now feels like a prison uniform. Mayor Washington, please, you have to understand. Derek's voice cracks like a teenage boy's. I was having a terrible morning. My supervisor's been riding me hard. Passengers have been difficult all week. I wasn't thinking straight. His excuses tumble out in a desperate avalanche of self-preservation. Each word reveals the pathetic smallness of a man who built his self-worth on crushing others. Maybe we can work this out between us, Derek continues, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I mean, you're a reasonable person. You understand how stressful this job can be. Nobody needs to make this into a big federal case. Evelyn's silence speaks louder than any response. She simply stands with quiet dignity, while Derek unravels before 30 witnesses and multiple recording devices. James Cooper's live stream viewer count has exploded to over 50,000 people watching Derek's meltdown in real time. Comments flood the screen with outrage and demands for justice. Local news stations are already reaching out to James for exclusive footage. The businessman fumbles with his phone, desperately trying to delete any evidence of his own racist comments, but screenshots are already circulating on social media. His corporate career is about to become collateral damage in Derek's implosion. "I could give you free rides for life," Derek offers pathetically. "Or maybe I could make a donation to your favorite charity. Whatever makes this right, just name it." His bribes only dig his grave deeper. Several passengers shake their heads in disgust at his transparent attempts to buy his way out of consequences. Maria Santos pulls out her own phone and dials 911. "I'm reporting a hate crime in progress on City Bus Route 47. We need transit police immediately." "No, no, no!" Derek waves his hands frantically. "Don't call anyone. We can handle this ourselves. Nobody needs to get authorities involved." But it's far too late for damage control. The blonde woman has finally found her conscience and is texting furiously to her yoga instructor friends, sharing the story that will soon dominate social media feeds across the city. The teenager's TikTok video is already going viral with hashtags like @JusticeForMayorWashington and #BusDriverExposed. His followers are sharing it faster than Derek can process what's happening to his life. Harold Mitchell calls the Transit Authority complaint line, his elderly voice strong with moral conviction. "I'm reporting serious misconduct by driver Derek Walsh, badge number 2847. He has violated every policy in your handbook while harassing a passenger who happens to be our former mayor." Derek makes one final desperate play, addressing the entire bus with false bravado. "Look, everyone just got the wrong idea here. This was all a big misunderstanding. I was just doing my job following protocol. Sometimes these situations look worse than they really are." But his audience has seen too much, recorded too much, endured too much to buy his revisionist history. The bus radio crackles to life. "Unit 47, this is dispatch. We're receiving multiple calls about your bus. What's your status?" Derek's hand hovers over the radio mic like it's a live snake. He knows any response will be recorded and used against him later. "Unit 47, respond immediately, or we're sending supervisors to your location." The radio falls silent as Derek realizes he has no acceptable response. Any lie will be contradicted by dozens of witnesses. Any truth will end his career instantly. The bus doors hiss open as Derek finally admits defeat. "Everyone can get off here if they want. Routes terminated due to mechanical difficulties." But passengers aren't leaving. They've witnessed history and want to see justice served in real time. A transit authority supervisor's car pulls up behind the bus, emergency lights flashing. Carol Jenkins, a no-nonsense black woman in her 50s, boards the bus with the authority Derek wishes he still possessed. "What's going on here?" Carol's voice cuts through Derek's last pretenses like a surgical knife. Before Derek can craft another lie, James Cooper speaks up. "Ma'am, we have video evidence of driver harassment targeting Mayor Evelyn Washington. Multiple passengers witnessed civil rights violations." Carol's eyes widen as she recognizes Evelyn. "Mayor Washington? Ma'am, I am so sorry. This is absolutely unacceptable." Derek watches his career die as Carol removes his keys and radio with clinical efficiency. "Derek Walsh, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Step off this bus immediately." "Carol, come on, we've worked together for years. You know I'm not a bad guy. This whole thing got blown out of proportion. The only thing I know is that you've disgraced this entire transit system." Carol's voice carries the finality of a judge's gavel. Derek walks off his own bus in shame, leaving behind the wreckage of a career destroyed by his own hatred. Justice has arrived, and it's just getting started. Within hours of James Cooper's viral live stream, the story explodes across every media platform in the city. Local news vans line up outside transit headquarters like vultures circling carrion. Derek Walsh's name becomes synonymous with institutional racism, his face broadcast into living rooms across America. Good evening. I'm Sandra Martinez with Channel 7 News. Tonight we have exclusive footage of what civil rights leaders are calling one of the most blatant cases of public transportation discrimination in decades. The anchor's grave tone sets the stage for Derek's public crucifixion. The footage plays on loop across every network. Derek's sneering face, his racist taunts, Evelyn's quiet dignity under assault. Social media algorithms amplify the outrage, pushing the video to millions of viewers worldwide. Dr. Patricia Williams, a civil rights attorney and longtime friend of Evelyn's, appears on CNN within 6 hours of the incident. What we witnessed today was not an isolated event. This was systemic racism enabled by institutional indifference. Derek Walsh didn't become a monster overnight. He was created by a system that protects perpetrators and silences victims. The transit authority's phone lines collapse under the flood of complaints. Mayor Jennifer Carter calls an emergency press conference, her political instincts recognizing a crisis that could define her administration. I am personally appalled by the treatment Mayor Washington received on our public transportation system, Carter declares, flanked by civil rights leaders and city council members. We will conduct a comprehensive investigation and implement immediate reforms to ensure this never happens again. Behind the scenes, transit authority lawyers work frantically to contain the legal fallout. Derek's personnel file reveals a damning pattern. 23 previous complaints for discriminatory behavior, all dismissed or minimized by supervisors more concerned with union politics than passenger rights. The NAACP announces a federal civil rights lawsuit within 48 hours. Attorney General Patricia Thornton opens a Department of Justice investigation into the transit authority's handling of discrimination complaints. Congressional representatives demand hearings on civil rights enforcement in public transportation. Derek's union representative, Michael O'Brien, holds a disastrous press conference attempting to defend the indefensible. Derek Walsh is a 15-year employee with a previously clean record. Sometimes in high-stress situations, misunderstandings occur that don't reflect someone's true character. The defense crumbles under media scrutiny when investigative reporters uncovered Derek's social media history. Years of racist posts, Confederate flag imagery, and conspiracy theories about minorities receiving undeserved benefits. His ex-wife Jennifer surfaces with damaging testimony about Derek's private rants against uppity black passengers. He came home angry every day, complaining about having to serve people he considered beneath him. I left him because I couldn't stand the hatred consuming our house. The Transit Workers Union fractures as diverse membership revolts against leadership's protection of Derek. Maria Santos, energized by her encounter with Evelyn, organizes fellow union members to demand Derek's expulsion and policy reforms. We refuse to let Derek Walsh represent us, Maria tells reporters outside union headquarters. Real working people don't tolerate racism. We serve the public with pride and respect. Federal prosecutors, recognizing the national attention and political pressure, move with unprecedented speed. Derek is arrested at his apartment on charges of violating civil rights under color of law, deprivation of rights under federal statute, and criminal conspiracy. The perp walk footage becomes another viral moment. Derek, unshaven and disheveled, led away in handcuffs while neighbors who once ignored his racism suddenly distanced themselves from the neighborhood pariah. His court-appointed attorney enters a guilty plea during the arraignment, recognizing that fighting dozens of video recordings and witness testimonies would only extend Derek's public humiliation. The judge, a stern black woman named Honorable Diane Foster, shows no sympathy. Mr. Walsh, you abused the trust placed in you as a public servant. You used your position to terrorize citizens based on their race and age. Your actions brought shame not just on yourself, but on every honest transit worker in this city. The sentencing hearing draws hundreds of protesters demanding justice. Evelyn herself appears to give victim impact testimony, her words measured but devastating. "Your Honor, Mr. Walsh didn't just attack me that morning. He attacked every elderly person who needs public transportation, every minority who depends on city services, every citizen who expects basic human dignity from public employees. His behavior was not an aberration. It was the predictable result of a system that enables hatred." Derek's mother and sister attend the hearing, their faces etched with shame and bewilderment at what their family member became. His mother's tears draw no sympathy from the packed courtroom. Judge Foster sentences Derek to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised probation and mandatory community service with civil rights organizations. The gavel's bang echoes through the courtroom like a door slamming shut on Derek's old life. Furthermore, Judge Foster continues, "You are permanently banned from employment in any public transportation system nationwide. Your actions have forfeited your right to serve the public in any capacity." The civil lawsuit against the Transit Authority settles for $2.5 million, with funds going to establish the Evelyn Washington Civil Rights Education Center. The money means less to Evelyn than the institutional reforms the settlement mandates. Every bus driver must now complete 40 hours of cultural sensitivity training. Body cameras become mandatory equipment. A citizen oversight committee gains power to investigate discrimination complaints. Zero-tolerance policies replace the old system of warnings and slaps on the wrist. Derek's story becomes a cautionary tale taught in diversity training programs across the country. Business schools use his case to illustrate how individual prejudice can create massive institutional liability. His name becomes shorthand for the consequences of unchecked racism. Carol Jenkins, promoted to Director of Driver Training, implements Evelyn's suggestions for reformed hiring practices. "We're not just driving buses," she tells new recruits. "We're serving our neighbors, our community, our fellow human beings. Anyone who can't handle that responsibility needs to find another job." The teenage boy from the bus, shaken by witnessing raw hatred, volunteers for the civil rights center Evelyn establishes. The businessman quietly donates his annual bonus to civil rights organizations, his conscience finally activated by seeing his own prejudices exposed. 6 months later, Derek sits in his federal prison cell reading news coverage of the Civil Rights Center's opening. Evelyn's grace-filled speech about forgiveness and redemption offers him a path back to humanity he's not sure he deserves. His cellmate, a black man serving time for drug charges, asks about the news article. Derek's response will determine whether his punishment leads to rehabilitation or deeper bitterness. The choice, like the original choice to treat Evelyn with cruelty, remains his to make. But for the first time in years, consequences match actions, and justice has been served with mathematical precision. 2 years later, Evelyn Washington stands before a gleaming new transit center named in her honor, watching diverse crowds of passengers board buses driven by respectful, professionally trained drivers. The morning sun streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a space designed for dignity rather than mere functionality. "When I rode that bus 2 years ago," Evelyn tells the assembled crowd at the dedication ceremony, "I never imagined that moment of pain would bloom into this garden of hope. But that's how change works. It requires ordinary people to refuse accepting extraordinary injustice as normal." The audience includes Maria Santos, now a union leader advocating for worker rights and passenger dignity. James Cooper, whose journalism degree led to a job documenting social justice stories for national media. Harold Mitchell, whose courage to speak up inspired other elderly passengers to become active in civil rights causes. Even the teenager from the bus attends, now volunteering as a youth coordinator at Evelyn's Civil Rights Center. His transformation from indifferent bystander to passionate advocate proves that witnessing injustice can awaken dormant moral courage. The reforms triggered by that morning's confrontation spread far beyond one city's transit system. Federal legislation now requires bias training for all public transportation employees nationwide. The Evelyn Washington standards become the gold standard for treating passengers with dignity and respect. Derek Walsh, released after serving his full sentence, works quietly at a nonprofit organization helping formerly incarcerated individuals reintegrate into society. His mandatory community service evolved into genuine commitment after months of listening to stories from people his prejudice once dismissed as unworthy. He attends anger management counseling and racial sensitivity workshops, slowly unlearning decades of toxic thinking. His journey toward redemption remains incomplete, marked by setbacks and moments of old hatred surfacing, but the direction has changed. His ex-wife Jennifer remarries and changes her children's last names, but occasionally receives updates on Derek's progress. "I hope he becomes the man I thought I married," she tells friends. "Hatred poisoned our entire family. Maybe healing can do the opposite." The Transit Authority, once notorious for discrimination complaints, becomes a model employer recruiting drivers from diverse communities. Carol Jenkins's reforms create an environment where respect flows naturally between colleagues and passengers. Route 47, once a symbol of institutional racism, now represents transformation and hope. Elderly passengers no longer fear harassment. Minority riders experience courtesy instead of contempt. Young people see public service as an honorable career rather than a refuge for failed dreams and misdirected anger. Evelyn's Civil Rights Center partners with universities to study how individual prejudice metastasizes into institutional discrimination. Their research influences corporate policies, government training programs, and legal frameworks protecting vulnerable populations. The real victory, Evelyn explains to visitors, wasn't sending Derek Walsh to prison. It was changing the system that created Derek Walsh. One person's hatred became a catalyst for thousands of people choosing compassion. The center's walls display photos from that infamous bus ride alongside images of the positive changes that followed. Derek's mugshot appears not as a villain to despise, but as a cautionary example of what unchecked prejudice ultimately costs both victim and perpetrator. Students from around the world study Evelyn's response to hate, how she maintained dignity under assault, how she used her platform to create lasting change, how she chose restoration over revenge when given the power to destroy her attacker's life completely. Maintaining our dignity in the face of discrimination is not just personal strength, Evelyn tells groups of young activists. It's a form of resistance. When someone tries to make you less than human, staying human becomes a revolutionary act. The lessons extend beyond racism to every form of discrimination plaguing society. LGBTQ+ advocacy groups, disability rights organizations, and immigrant support networks adapt Evelyn's strategies for their own struggles against institutionalized prejudice. At 74, Evelyn continues riding public transportation daily, but now her presence represents progress rather than vulnerability. Bus drivers greet her respectfully, passengers offer seats graciously, and children learn from their parents that every person deserves basic human dignity. "Each of us has the power to stand up against injustice," she concludes her dedication speech, "whether we're witnessing it or experiencing it ourselves. The choice and the power to create change is always in our hands." The crowd applauds, but more importantly, they carry her message into their daily lives, workplaces, and communities. Change spreads like ripples from a stone dropped in still water, touching shores the original thrower never imagined reaching. Your turn to create change. Share this story with someone who needs to hear about the power of dignity defeating hatred. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary people creating extraordinary transformation. Join our community committed to recognizing humanity in every person. In a world where discrimination still exists in our schools, workplaces, and communities, what will it take for each of us to become the person who speaks up instead of the person who looks away? The choice and the power to create change is in your hands.